Good morning. My name is Heidi Adkisson. I am a UX designer and partner at BlinkUX. I'm very pleased to introduce the speaker for this session, Dana Bright. Dana is currently a user experience designer for Google Maps in Seattle. She's got a diverse and interesting background that includes audio applications and mobile gaming, in addition to her work at Google. She is originally from Israel, where she earned a bachelor's degree in visual communication. The topic today addresses a challenge I think we've all faced as designers, which is simplifying complex interactions. Please join me in welcoming Dana.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Sounds like okay. Okay, so let's start this. Okay, so I basically don't wake up every day thinking I want to make a crappy UX or a crappy app. But actually, simplifying interaction is really hard work. And it takes some basic principles that I want to tell you about today. I'm going to present 6 principles to simplify interactions with some examples. And then I'll show you 2 examples from product I designed in Google. So the first one is start from the user goals and not features. Just a quick survey. How many of you here work in like kind of large tech companies? Okay. Has any of you ever had kind of product managers that said, this is the list of features that we are going to build for this product? Okay. This is not how we build products. This is not how we build good products. And this is definitely not the way to get to simplifications. What we really need to do is start from the user story. And remember from yesterday, Eric, with Gus, that's, again, a really nice way of putting it. Start from what the user wants to do. So the user has goals. From the goals, they make up the activities that they need to do in order to reach those goals. And only then you get to the tasks. And then that helps you build the features and what will actually be in your product. A really awesome example I like to give for this is the Paper app. I don't know how many of you use or know the Paper iOS app, but it's a really awesome, amazing app to basically do sketching for ideas or illustrations, whatever you want to use it for. You can see that basically this is the interface. You have the option to select one of a few tools and another option to select one of a few colors. That's it. The basic version even comes with, I think, only 1 or 2 tools, and you can buy more. And when you think about that versus other tools some of us might use or know on our desktop machines that I won't mention their names, think of all the menus and options and filters that you have there. Think about every different thing that you have to do in order to do one simple drawing like this one. And I think that, again, what really helped them is they kind of could start from scratch. They didn't start from the features and features. They just started from this. They looked at what the user is trying to do. So the user is trying to communicate ideas, right? That's the basics. I want to communicate my ideas. Then the activities are, I want to choose colors. I want to change tools. I want to basically share that with others. It's just basically one line. If you can define your product in one line, that's what it means. You want to help Gus or your users with one line. And only then you can get to the tasks of like, let's go to the, drill down to like the number of drawing options or what colors should we show here. And I think that this is really important. And there are different ways of how you can kind of get to those goals, how you start from your user stories. Amazon has a really good way of writing fake press releases. Before they even start anything, they basically go and they do this fake press release for the product that they basically tell users why they were building this product and kind of trying to imagine what users were thinking about this product. Different ways is field studies. Just go talk to your users, write personas, anything that will really help you put yourself in the mindset of your users. And that's the main key and the main goal for simplification. And of course, again, the one-liner. Can you say what your product, what your user wants to do, and how your product will help them get there in one line? So we talked about starting from user goals. Principle number 2 is reduce user's choice. So decisions are hard work. They're really hard work. Every day when we wake up in the morning and we need to decide, what we want to eat, or how we'll get to work, or what news article we'll decide to read online. Every second of our life, we basically have to make decisions. And our goal as user experience designers is to help reduce those decisions. A really good example for this is the jam experiment. Anyone of you ever heard of the jam experiment? Okay, so basically what they did in the jam experiment is they divided users to 2 groups. To one group, they showed 6 types of jams in the grocery store, and for the other group, they showed 24. Who do you think bought more jam? Yeah, so basically 30% of the people who saw 6 types of jam bought the jam. Only 3% of the people who saw 24 types of jam bought the jam. Think about it. This is huge for everyone that's doing e-commerce or anything that needs to convert, but it's not only that. If users need to make too many decisions in your product, they'll just leave, or they'll just get tired, or they'll just, it will just take them more time, and they won't like your product as much. So this is huge, and when we're thinking of how we actually implement that, that means that everything you do, you have to kind of question, right? Does this extra screen really needs to be there? Do you really need that extra dialogue? Do you really need this extra menu or pop-up? How many items need to be in the menu? Because you really need to understand, again, if this is this really helping the user to reach their goal, or is this kind of, again, taking more time, asking too many things to do? So a really good example for that is Hyperlapse. For those of you who don't know, Hyperlapse is basically a video recording app that does video stabilization, which means I can, for example, walk down the street, record it, and then have this kind of fast kind of preview of that video, very stabilized, that it's not jumpy and bouncy. This is done by the Instagram team. So, like, the first thing you can see from reducing choices is they could have just added as a mode in Instagram, right, in the Instagram camera, but they didn't. Why? Because they wanted to reduce decision making. They wanted to make sure that users that want to do this video can just go, click that button, decide when you want to start the video, when you want to pause the video, and then the only decision you have to do after is just how fast it will be in the screen, that you see the right screen. That's it. And again, this is a really good example, and probably a really good example for why we're seeing more and more kind of standalone apps, or like cases like companies that break smaller dedicated apps for use cases, because when we have too many features and too many options in the apps, users just get lost. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to choose. Number 3, which is one of my favorites, give users feedback. So we all know we need to give users feedback, right? We know that users, when they interact with our products, they basically want to get something in return. They want to get that feedback loop of kind of helping them get ready for what's going to happen, and helping close that interaction loop. But feedback can be delightful, and I know Dan talked yesterday about micro-interaction. I think motion design is super important in those feedback moments, because those can actually create these like branded elements in your app, and can be fun, and can create these delightful emotional connections for users with your products. 2 examples that I want to show. Unfortunately, I don't have an animated version of the Uber, but Uber basically, blown people's mind off when they started with their app. You can, for those of you who don't know, it's an app to basically order a cab. You can see which cars are available next to you. Literally, you see them visually on the map. You tap the button, and then you can actually see your car, the cab, kind of moving towards you on the map, and you can see how close it is to you. And you have that affordance, that reassurance that something is happening, that you have the feedback that the car is coming. Then obviously you see when it's right next to you. Another example is from closer to home. So Google, for voice search, it's really, really important to have that feedback when you talk, right? You want to make sure that, the search, that we hear you. So you have those like gray lines that just kind of show you that there is input. And then you have the words kind of starting to fill in, so you can see if something was kind of wrong. And we're doing a really good job now, but especially in the beginning when, for example, with me for my accent, it was really important to kind of see when I was talking that it wasn't sometimes picking everything right. So again, feedback, please remember the micro interaction, remember the motion design. So we talked about remembering user goals. We talked about reducing choices and giving users feedback. Principle number 4, break the process into bite-sized interactions. I don't know like how many of you work on like super complex interaction. I used to work on, I had a product, for example, of like buying travel insurance. This is a huge form that has so many like bits and pieces to fill out, and it's so exhausting. And what you really want to do is to try to break the experience into bite-sized interaction that people can actually handle, that it won't be overwhelming for them. But another thing that we need to do when we create these bite-sized interactions is to make them, sometimes even reinvent them, right? So that they will be really easy to do. Who here uses Amazon to shop? The bite-sized interaction in this case is the buy with one click, right? How many of you are using Amazon just because of that, right? We don't have to go and start filling out that form and putting all those input again and again, your credit card number and your address and all of that, right? So this is a case where they basically took this whole huge chunk, right? They broke the experience to two pieces, to bite-sized interaction, but then they basically said, okay, and now for the buying process, we'll just save your data, so you can just buy with one click. Here, we saved you all of it. When Instagram went out to the market, I mean, there were plenty of photo editing apps, right? What made them super special and super awesome is that adding filter to a photo, which used to be like, tons of, again, menus and click, and again, think of the desktop products we use as designers. It was really complicated. What they basically went and did is they look at that, whole flow of I want to edit my photo, then I want to share it, then I want to publish it, right? They broke it to bite-sized interaction, and for the editing, they kind of reinvented that. For all you do is you basically have this one simple slider. You select between a few, in the beginning, I think there weren't also that many, basic features of the photo filter, and that's it. You're done. So again, it's both, I guess, reducing choice, but definitely bite-sized interaction. The one on the right is Carousel. For those of you who don't know, it's an app. It's basically a photo gallery app by Dropbox folks. And what I really like about it, and where I think they really managed to take the bite-sized interaction really well, is the slider that you see there on the bottom. Think of having years and years of photos. If you wanted to just scroll through all that photos, it will take you a long, long time, right? What they did is they did this slider at the bottom that lets you kind of scrub through years of photos. So if I want to jump really fast to February of 2010, I can just do it in less than a second. So again, the bite size of something that can take a long time, or that you can use search for, you can go to albums for, etc. Okay, so talked about goals, about choice, feedback, and bite size. Number 5 is remember users' affordances. Who of you have had at a certain point try to push a door when it said pull? So users have mental models, and we really need to make sure that we keep them in mind. And yeah, we all know that, but at the end of the day, the problem is we don't always remember that. This is also why it's so important to validate in user studies. Who of you has ever had, when you watched a user study and you saw users interacting with your designers, and you're like, don't do that! Why is he pushing that button. I can't believe it. You know, this happened to me, and I'm sure it happened to most of you. And this is, again, why we kind of need to validate again and again and check with real users, because a lot of the times when we design, we think, oh, well, they know that they can pull this thing from below, but they don't, because you didn't give them the affordance that they can. So, again, users' mental models, they know that they can do this action to pinch and zoom. They can know that they can pull things from below or from above, or something will come from the side or will enlarge. And we really need to use them. It doesn't mean you can introduce new models of interaction, right? Look at the iPhone. But when you do that, you need to make sure that it's for a good reason and that you educate the user and that, of course, you validated that it's easy to learn. I once saw, I won't name the company, but a mouse done, one of the companies in the area here that had like 30 different interaction models that you can use. It was kind of a smart mouse thing. And just from seeing it, it was clear to me that it was way too complicated. I mean, we really need to make sure that we think through, again, what can people do and what's too hard on the mind to learn, and how many new interaction models can we basically introduce at once. So this is just to try to show it in a more graphic way. Do and please don't do, right? Like the ones on the left, those are two basically ways of showing that you can slide content. What we can call the gestalt. Gestalt in design basically means the sum of all parts. So in design, you can kind of look at it as when something is off screen, my mind still imagines. My mind can still kind of imagine the rest of it, so I know that I can swipe it. And again, this seems really like, I guess, I don't know, basic, but so many people, so many apps, so many products just don't do this. And like the one on the right is, again, maybe you can swipe, maybe you can. Why should you know that, right? So affordances, using affordances, I like to show these like mini interactions, because when you use affordances, you can kind of create amazing, delightful moments that, again, are kind of branded for your apps or your services, and also just simplify huge processes. Look at the one on the left. So Path, so many, like, you know, copycats for that one, right? It's basically a social media app that you just tap one button and you get all at once, like the different options to share content, instead of, you know, having another menu and another menu. The one in the middle is the new Google Calendar app. And you can see that it's using, you know, Suggest, something that, again, is already like a mental model for users in a really smart way. You basically can create an event in like 3 clicks, because the Suggest is smart, so it can kind of offer you right away, like, who do you want to meet, the place and the location, and then it's right there in your calendar with the map. And the one on the right is Clear. It's a to-do kind of task organizer for iOS. Again, just swiping things, marking them as done, rearranging stuff, all with simple mental models and interactions that, again, are all in our toolbox. It basically means just, you know, use what we have in the toolbox, but try to think of how we can use those interaction toolbox in order to create something more simple for users. So again, we talked about goals, choices, feedback, bite size, affordances. Number 6 and last, question what was done before. And I on purpose put it right after number 5, because I basically told you, you know, be careful and use only the mental models people know. But if we don't try to, you know, question what was done before, if we don't try to, you know, kind of look at what everyone else is doing and just say, I don't care, I want to put everything aside, or what, you know, your product was doing until now, you'll never innovate, you'll never simplify things. And the way we do that in Google and probably other places is design sprints. We do, especially when we're stuck, but not just when we're stuck, we basically go take all stakeholders, especially designers, but obviously we need you know, engineering leads and product managers, in one room for 2 days. Brainstorm the user stories, the main goal that we want to achieve. And then we kind of go in that room and just try to brainstorm ideas to solve that, and then we basically vote. on what we're going to work on the sprint. And the second day is basically for trying to visualize the ideas more, and that's how you get to the winner. You need to not worry about, sharing ideas early, collaborating with people, experimenting, and that's how you'll get to the winner. And of course, don't afraid to fail. I mean, obviously each company has their failures, but that's how you learn. That's how you eventually innovate and simplify. So again, blue sky thinking, innovation. Square is the reason why most of us in the room don't carry cash. Who of you usually don't carry cash anymore, right? We can pay our babysitters. We can pay anyone with credit card. This is crazy, right? They just kind of went and thought, wait, this is broken, right? I just want to pay. I don't want to carry all those coins in my pocket. This is really like an amazing example for, just forget what everyone else is doing. Just try to think out of the box. So now I'm going to show 2 examples of how I use some of these or all of these examples in products I designed at Google. So the first one is Photosphere camera on iOS. For those of you who don't know, Photosphere is basically crowdsourcing Street View. It's a way for users to create 360-degree immersive photos of places around them. And when you were talking about users' goals, obviously it's a combined goals for user and for Google, right? We want to have more Street View so we can give users better services, but users want to publish their own Street View to Street View, so that, for example, if we don't have Street View in their country or we don't have a good immersive imagery of where they work or where they want to share places with, they can actually go and contribute that content to maps. Photosphere, before we designed this app, already existed as an Android mode in the Google camera on Android. The problem with, basically the challenges with the Android version were several that, again, we were mainly lucky that we could fix because we could do one standalone application in iOS that they couldn't in Android. But basically, the targets were kind of small for CAPTCHA. Because the photosphere was just one of the imagery types, it basically meant that it's just a mode in the camera, so a lot of people don't even know they can get to it because they've never heard about it or they don't know they can get to it. When you want to go to when you actually see the photos in the gallery, again, because it's one of the imagery types, they couldn't do a dedicated viewing experience. So you have to tap again to see the immersive view, which, again, a lot of people don't even know that they can do. And thirdly, and obviously another big challenge for us, is that people don't even know they can upload these photospheres to Maps, because you need to go to this share menu, and Maps is somewhere there in one of the options. So we basically went, and for iOS, again, we can just really do a dedicated app for Photosphere and focused on the feedback and the bite-sized interactions. Because taking photospheres, for those of you who, and I'm assuming most of you or some of you never took these, is a lot of hard work. The way we do it is you have to go and stand and take several frames. You spin in a circle, so when you do that, people sometimes look at you and think you're kind of crazy, but it's worth for the outcome. And then we basically stitch the whole frame together to create this really wonderful, delightful, immersive imagery. And there's also the option to use the phone gyro, so especially I really like using it when I sit on like a desktop chair, so I can actually spin and pretend I'm, in Sicily or anywhere I want to go in the world. And again, so in CAPTCHA, first of all, we just made a CAPTCHA target larger so you can actually see, and this could actually migrate over to Android because, again, this is something they could do. But we really wanted to make sure users understand and they get feedback. I don't have screenshots for all the capture steps, but the thing we focused on was this progress ring that you get for each basically frame you take, you basically get a progress ring, so it helps you understand how much of the 360 range you're covering. So it really motivates users to keep on spinning and taking more frames so they can do the full 360, and when it's done, it just turns green. Another thing is if your phone is not aligned, those targets actually become red, and we show this icon. Again, I can show all the screens. So again, kind of giving users a lot of feedback. And of course, the targets change color from white to orange when you actually take them to really show you when it's ready. It's especially important in indoor photography. So stitching, unfortunately this doesn't work. I'm not sure. Let's see if I can, let's see if this will work. Sometimes it works, so yeah, it doesn't work. I can show you, for those of you who want, I can show you later. Anyway, we have a Pegman. Pegman is the Google Maps mascot, and when the photo sphere is stitching, users actually have to wait. Again, in Android, it was a problem because they actually have to go and then view it in another app. They sometimes are not even sure how to view it, etc. Basically, what we did is we animated Google Maps mascot, and he's actually running and stitching your photos together. And when he's done, there's like this really nice confetti. Again, for those of you, I'll show you in the real app. And it was funny, actually, because when we did it, talking about mental models, we thought about using the Google colors, so maybe each time you'll have different color of confetti. And we did red, and then it looked like the guy blew up. So obviously we had to kind of go back to just using blues. But again, this is a way to kind of give the user feedback that something is happening, what is happening, and when they're done, they understand that the photo is ready. And also, again, kind of keeping them engaged so they don't get bored. Another thing, again, is here you can see, obviously, the bite-size interaction is like not having everything in one place. First, you take the photo. You have almost like a mini step for each frame you take, and then when you have the stitching, you have the feedback and the bite-size interaction. Again, for the immersive view, this animated GIF is a bit jumpy because I just used, flat images. But you basically have, again, the way to either swipe or use the phone gyro to look at this like immersive photo. But when you tap one time, you basically have the Chrome, the image Chrome back on, and you can get this simple publishing sheet with info of where the photo is and a big call to action to publish to Google Maps. So you can really see, you can really understand that this is the thing you can do with it, and not just, again, obviously you can just take them for fun for your own phone, but obviously also share them with people and publish to Maps. And lastly, we talked about introducing new mental models, new interaction, that if you do that, you want to make sure that people understand what to do. So as I said, it's not so easy to take photospheres. There is a learning curve. After you get it, it's pretty easy, but again, you need to learn. So we really wanted to make sure the onboarding is cleared and that we explain people in a fun and delightful way what they can do with the app. Okay. Moving on to something completely different, the no CAPTCHA reCAPTCHA. So how many of you know what reCAPTCHA is? I'm actually sure all of you know, but you don't know it by name. So this is reCAPTCHA. This is the super annoying thing you have to do every time not every time, but a lot of times when you file forms online. And basically, it started as a way to both protect websites from bots, but also digitize books, because the started text that you type actually help Google, and before that, that was reCAPTCHA, digitize books. And it was a super successful project. That's how Google Books is done, and that was great. But again, what happened was, over the years, bots became smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter, and now 99% of evil computer bots can solve these CAPTCHAs. So what started happening was that they had to make the CAPTCHAs, the distort text harder and harder and harder. So now we got to this weird state where computers can solve it, but we can't. Regular users just can't. They have to refresh, and sometimes they just want to die. All they want to do is go through this form or buy something, and they just like, oh God, I can't do this. We sometimes do use images from Street View, as you can see, to both, again, crowdsource imagery recognition of addresses, but also, again, it's actually easier it was at least easier to fill out. Another challenge with that was that basically because the API was closed, all they can do is change the image at the top, so the dimension of the challenge, quote unquote, was basically the same. So you get this weird situation where you have type the 2 words and you see the Street View number. And people are like, what? Where are the 2 words? So it was clear we needed to invent something new, right? We're talking about the user goal. The user goal is I want to get through my form. Just leave me the hell alone. Our goal is to stop bots and do some imagery crowdsourcing on the way. And basically, again, basically the forget what was before. Remember that one? Just kind of all of us went into the room and thought, how can we make this better? And our, again, genius computer science folks basically realized that they can now divide the users to 3 groups. The huge majority of users basically can, as long as they interact with a challenge, we can actually know that they're not evil bots. The second group is we're not so sure, so we'll give them some sort of a challenge. And the third group is basically evil, vicious bots that will show the super hard challenge. Either super, super hard distorted text or, again, whatever we needed to do. So there were a lot of UX challenges here, right? It meant we needed to introduce an extra step because some users need to interact with it and they're fine, they're good to go. Some users need a challenge. It was clear we needed to make an API framework that will show different challenges types because computers just keep getting smarter and smarter and we don't know what will be in like a year from now or 2 years from now. And again, there were all kinds of challenges of how are we going to do this? So in the beginning, the team was really pushing for this big pop-up that will come when you interact with kind of a button. And there were all kinds of, like, again, innovative, crazy ideas. Let's try to make it fun. Let's show, if you can see the image on the right, let's ask them to paint over the bench and the bicycle with a paintbrush. Let's show that it's safe and show the lock. The thing we did after some of these initial ideas was to do a cognitive walkthrough. For those of you who don't know, cognitive walkthroughs, they're an amazing way to validate products in the beginning of when you're in the very initial stages of the product. You basically just validate a flow or validate an interaction model, validate if people even want and understand the product. And it saves so much time of like developers and designers and everyone basically, instead of just building the wrong thing. So we did a cognitive walkthrough, and we got some really interesting feedback. My favorite feedback was no one wants to have fun while they're filling out a form. And it's true, no one wants to have fun. They just want, as we said, user goal is, again, we wanted to make it easy for them, but they just want to get through the form. I won't say the word. So that was the first thing. The second thing was users, a lot of them are kind of scared of pop-ups, right? You have this pop-up thing that kind of jumps at you, and you don't know if it's an ad or a spam or what's going on here. Third, it was just not clear. Why should I even click this button? What's verified with reCAPTCHA? What is reCAPTCHA? What is that lock? Lock means usually the site is safe for me, but this site is actually, it means that this helps the user, but actually reCAPTCHA, what it does is it helps the site, right? It protects the site from bots. So again, we kind of went back to the drawing board and thought, okay, we need to kind of rethink this. We need to make sure that this works and people understand. And this is what we did. We basically have, I'm not a robot. It's a checkbox. One thing I didn't mention is another thing that we really realize is we want to make sure that people can tab into the form field, both because of screen readers and also because of usability, just using keyboard. So it's basically a checkbox. I'm not a robot. People understand why they need to do this. They're already used to, again, mental models. They're used to kind of saying stuff like, blah, blah, I read this terms and stuff that they don't really read. And that's it. That's it for most users now once the new API will be there. In other cases, for example, mobile, or again, we're not sure if you're not yes or not a robot. What we have right now is this challenge, which is way more easier than the distorted text. You just have to, for example, pick a bunch of images of cats. And this is actually harder for computers to do now than the distorted text, believe it or not. Certain tasks that for us as people are really easy are super hard for robots. But again, the nice thing is that because this is kind of a more subtle pop-up that kind of goes from the checkbox, so it's clear that they're connected. It doesn't feel as intrusive, but we can control the size of the challenge. We can control how the challenge will look like. We can do something completely different from different devices now. We have full control, and we can kind of keep iterating for that, or keep iterating for the crowdsourcing needs, or for the user needs, or for the devices they're doing now because of that flexibility. So win-win for everyone. So let's talk again, just going through of the principles we talked about. Start from the user goals, not features. Reduce users' choice. Give users feedback. Break process to bite-sized interaction. Remember users' affordances, and question what was done before, which is my favorite. And of course, keep calm and iterate. Okay, anyone have questions? I think we have some time. Okay. I'll be there if anyone wants to see the Pegman in real action. I can show you. Thanks. Oh, yeah.
So I'm curious, how often do you actually do user testing with your ideas?
We do a lot of user testing.
So
Yeah.
even with this example, do you put it in front of people?
Again, it really depends on the product. I've worked at different products, different companies. In Google, it even depends on the team. For example, I worked on products that are more commerce ads-like, so obviously the conversion is also very important. We did a lot of A/B testing. A lot of things we do, because again, it's at scale. We do usability testing with 6 and 8 people, but it's not always enough. For something like reCAPTCHA, we really wanted to make sure we're not completely breaking the experience, especially because we're doing something completely new. Bless you. So what we did was we actually started we first implemented a checkbox in Google-related websites. Then we saw it's working, so we started to work kind of in an alpha launch with some partners, and we got feedback from them, and we iterated, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a lot of the times it's different cycles of releases. Okay, thanks.